Okay, yeah, I'm the one on the left. So I figured I'd do something no one ever does in L&D, talk about AI, right? Kind of felt that there was a bit of a niche there to talk about it. But my name's Joe Leslie. I've been working in L&D for 20 years, and in the last sort of 3 or 4 years, I've basically merged my role into an AI L&D role, which is kind of awesome because you might have noticed a lot of people are talking about AI a lot. And I'm going to bring a kind of an optimistic message today about this. Okay, but what are other people saying? Here's our friend Sundar here at Alphabet. He's got a very understated view of AI, as you can see here, where he says it will have a more profound impact on humanity than fire, electricity, and the internet. Right? So it's kind of it's hard. Obviously, a lot of hyperbole, right, around AI. So how do we actually place it though, really, right? Because it is now recognized broadly as one of the GPTs, and that's not ChatGPT, that's general purpose technology. There've only been between 20 and 25 of these in human history, and these range from like prehistoric things like fire through the printing press, steam engine, through to modern ones like the personal computer and the internet. So already AI is kind of in that conversation, right, which is interesting. And it's reflected in our industry. Many of you may recognize this. Every year, Egler and Alstat, Donald Taylor do a L&D sentiment survey. Many of you, I'm sure, follow this, right? In the last sort of 3 years, AI has completely been the dominant force in this particular what's hot in L&D topic, and you can see here that it's at the top there. So it's kind of dominating our discourse within L&D, which is interesting, right? Because we've often, all of you as L&D professionals will know, when it comes to strategic initiatives, L&D hasn't always been kind of had a seat at the table, to use that expression. But I was at a conference a couple of months ago, and our friend Kevin, the L&D detective, his friend Brandon Carson, who was the CLO at Delta Airlines and Starbucks, some of you may be familiar with him, he was doing a talk where he was saying L&D and HR now are the table in this conversation, because we're actually driving a lot of this change, which is kind of refreshing for us. And what if I told you, folks, how about this for a plot twist, that actually AI training is not technical training for the most part. A lot of it is about some of the themes that have been explored by our speakers tonight about mindset shift, change management, and leaning into human skills. And that's kind of the optimistic note I want to hit on here. Okay, so in 1980, Steve Jobs came out with an interesting quote where he talked about the personal computer being a bicycle for the mind, which I think is a lovely metaphor. This image is a bit of a convoluted version of a bicycle, admittedly, but it's an interesting idea, isn't it? Because the bicycle without human impact cannot do anything, it can't go anywhere, right? It's an amplification of what we do as a human. And that kind of extends to any technology, and especially to AI. And that's going to bring us on to an idea of kind of flipping that from AI to IA, intelligence augmentation. What is this, I hear you ask? Well, as humans, we bring unique qualities. AI and machines can imitate some of these qualities, but they can't really capture judgment, empathy, and nuance like we can, right? We all know that. But similarly, we cannot operate with the same data speed and capacity that AI can. We all know that as well and recognize that as a limitation that we just have, right? But if you combine those two for this amplified impact, that's where we kind of get the smarter, faster, more scalable results. And I've seen this in my current role. I work for a company called Golin. They PR and communications company, and prior to that, me and my friend Rick Hood, who's over here, we worked at Publicis Group, who were one of the very early innovators with AI. They went all in 2018, and we've kind of seen now that the results for them have been very positive from that business decision. This talk can be sort of summarized by this particular tweet here. I'm going to go through it for you. This is from Kent Beck, who's a software engineer, you may be familiar with him. He said he's been reluctant to try ChatGPT, but he's now got over that reluctance and understands it. So this is the key point that I want to make today. The value of 90% of my skills just dropped to zero. Right? So 90% of your value skills dropped to zero, but the leverage for the remaining 10% went up 1,000-fold. Right, so this is a really interesting idea. It's a recalibration of your skills. I did a webinar yesterday for a training magazine, and I gave an example where in the 1980s, when Microsoft Excel was invented, 1985, an accountant I went back and looked at the research. Apparently around that time, accountants were terrified. They're going to lose their jobs because this new fancy technology, Microsoft Excel, is going to make them obsolete, right? And obviously we know 40 years later, last time I checked, there are still accountants, right? I mean, they're still there. Their role has been recalibrated. Probably less number crunching for them now and more strategic work that they do. And that's kind of it's almost an example that we can think about with AI. It's going to change a lot of what we do, and if we have the mindset to embrace that, then it's going to be better for us. World Economic Forum report came out about 2 or 3 months ago. If you look at the 10 fastest growing skills, I'm not going to go through all of these, don't worry, but I can summarize the sentiment here, and it's a lot of these are human skills, right? If you look, okay, AI and big data, number one, but then look at creative thinking, leadership, curiosity, lifelong learning, resilience. I would add adaptability. It doesn't seem to be in there, but I think that's a huge one. I would argue that technical literacy is as much a cognitive skill as it is a technical skill as well. So the sentiment here is that human skills are what's important for the future. And there was a really great Harvard Business Review article that you may have seen a couple of months ago that sort of also captured this sentiment. It's moving from the technical to the emotive uses with AI, which is kind of underscoring this point even more. And I'm going to end with a little bit of a sentimental note, if you'll indulge me here. So I actually work in the merchandise mart. My company's based in the merchandise mart, and I brought my kids into work. Bring your kids into work day a few weeks ago. So these are my 2 daughters. I'm a girl dad, right? So they came in, and I got a picture here, the picture on the right of my eldest daughter, Grace. I love this quote. Stay curious to stay relevant. This is a quote from our founder for our company, Al Golin. This is one of his famous kind of sayings, and I think that perfectly encapsulates where we are with AI. Is yes, there are aspects of AI that are a little scary, and we do see negative things, and it does amplify a lot of negative things. But if we lean into our humanity and our human skills, critical thinking, emotional intelligence, and curiosity, then that's going to make us more and more relevant and better at our jobs. So I'll leave you on that note.